Next news. Breaking news from the White House.
Less than 24 hours ago, the Supreme Court dropping a ruling that could blow up the Democrats' electoral playbook across the South, and President Donald Trump had a two-word reaction that said it all. Love it. In a 6-3 decision, the court ruled Louisiana's race-based congressional map was unconstitutional, delivering a huge win for equal protection and a crushing blow to the less favorite redistricting weapon. Of course, Democrats are furious, activist networks are panicking, and some on the left are already demanding political retaliation. Now, this is not just another court story. This is a direct hit on the machine, and the fallout could be massive. And I'm going to tell you why this matters. You see, for years, the left insisted that race had to be a central factor in drawing congressional districts. Then wrapped that power grab in the language of fairness, the Supreme Court just said no. If the Voting Rights Act did not require Louisiana to create an extra majority black district, then the state had no constitutional excuse to sort citizens by race. See, that's a big deal. It means lawmakers cannot simply use race as a shortcut to engineer outcomes they want. It also means dozens of districts in states like Alabama, Mississippi, and beyond could now face fresh legal challenges. And yes, that is huge for political consequences. Some estimates say Democrats could have up to 19 states put into play. So it's no wonder Hakeem Jeffries is calling the court illegitimate, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is floating a redistricting counterattack in New York. You see, they're not defending democracy. They're defending a system that helped them hold power. While the media machine whips up panic over every political and financial headline, there's a bigger game being played against ordinary Americans. That's why I tell people to look at what the insiders do, not what they say. Noble Gold Investments understands that Wall Street doesn't lose money on sell-offs. You do. They create the panic, wait for you to dump your position out of fear, and scoop it up at a discount. The big banks aren't selling their gold, they're buying yours. And every time the headlines scream, regular people sell. Every time regular people sell, the institutions are right there waiting with open hands. Now, you built portfolio insurance for a reason. Don't let a red day hand it over to the people who caused it. Visit nextnewsgold.com and learn how you could receive a free 10th ounce American Gold Eagle while you protect what you've earned with Noble Gold Investments. Because whether it's in politics or finance, the rule's the same. The people creating the chaos are usually the ones profiting from your fear. Now back to the real panic in Washington, because the loudest reaction may be the most revealing part of the whole story. See, Hakeem Jeffries didn't just criticize the ruling. He called the Supreme Court illegitimate and blamed what he called the Trump court. Think about that. Democrats spent years cheering activist judges when rulings helped them, but the second the Constitution gets enforced, they scream that the system is rigged. And AOC, she's already talking about doing their own partisan redistricting until Democrats get the federal ban that they want. Here she is.
Them to just hide that intent instead of actually address and prevent and protect Americans' voting rights who are at risk, and especially communities, I think, in the South of the United States, but it really affects every American across the country.
Should New York respond in kind by doing its own redistricting once the amendment, if the amendment passes?
I have long felt that we all have to play by the same set of rules. And the Republican caucus has made it very clear that they want and are setting rules of partisan gerrymandering. The Democratic caucus has tried to pass nonpartisan gerrymandering for 10 years. Republicans have rejected it. And so we have to all abide by the same rules. And so if Republicans are going to redraw North Carolina, if they're going to redraw Texas, if they're going to redraw and gerrymander every one of their states, then unfortunately we have to provide balance to that until we get to the day where we can all finally agree to put this behind us and pass nonpartisan gerrymandering federally.
Yeah. Until then, we're going to keep fighting back and redistricting. She says the Democrats should start redrawing maps too. If that's the game now, then Trump gets hit with the ruling at a presser and gives classic two-word answer. I love it. Here is the president in the Oval Office reacting to the Supreme Court ruling.
Haven't seen it.
When did it come out? Just now?
No, it came out this morning, but basically very much narrows the Voting Rights Act.
Was it considered a win for
a win for Republicans?
I love it.
But my question...
This is a very good... We can end this news conference right now. I want to read it.
My question, Mr. President, is that some Republican governors have not responded in terms of what they're going to do. I guess early voting.
I love it. Trump's first reaction was pure instinct, but the political fallout is where it gets real. Up next, the left starts panicking over estimates the Democrats could lose as many as 19 seats. Democrats are melting down over the Supreme Court ruling. Race-based congressional districts are unconstitutional.
They think 19 seats could be at risk all throughout the South. The question will be the timing. Is this a 2028 play? Is this a 2026 play? There are some primaries here coming up, not until later in the cycle. August 6th, there's one in Tennessee. That's Steve Cohen's seat. That's a majority minority district. That's in August 6th. The one Democratic seat there. The Jim Clyburn seat in South Carolina. That is the Democratic seat in South Carolina. That's a June 9th primary. Jamie, this shows you the ramifications long term for this ruling.
Absolutely. Just think about that number, 19 seats in play. And let's look at this politically. Laura, you talked about confusion going into this race. We're worried about voter suppression. Apart from the long-term impact, we are going to see people take advantage of that confusion. There is going to be, these midterms are so high stakes that anybody who thinks they can take advantage, on the state level of this decision, there is going to be a scramble to see if they can, because each side thinks this is an existential midterm, with the House especially.
Yeah.
Well, we know what happens if President Trump loses the midterms. It'll be witch hunts and impeachments all over again. So the meltdown's already underway over those potential seat losses. Now let's get into the ruling itself. This is from SCOTUS Wire. In a 6-3 ruling, the Supreme Court strikes down Louisiana's new congressional map that added a second majority black district, holding that it constitutes a racial gerrymander. The court narrows its previous interpretation of the Voting Rights Act. There is the actual ruling on your screen there. So the headline is the trigger. The legal reasoning matters. Now, here's the language from the court on why states across the South could be back in court very fast. Supreme Court ruling that declared gerrymandered map in Louisiana unconstitutional. They're saying some because the Voting Rights Act did not require Louisiana to create an additional majority-minority.
This, at first blush here, is a win for the plaintiffs who were not black plaintiffs. They were non-minority voters who challenged this decision. These two districts that were minority majority. Essentially, Louisiana had drawn up districts, and then they were told in a legal battle that they had not represented black and minority voters sufficiently. They went back and drew a second district. So they had two of these minority majority districts. Well, then non-black voters sued and said, this is now violating our rights on the basis of race. So it looks like this is a 6-3 decision. There is one concurrence here, but it looks like the dissent sticks together with Justices Kagan, Sotomayor, and Jackson. But here's what the majority says. They say in some, because the Voting Rights Act did not require Louisiana to create an additional majority-minority district, no compelling interest justified the state's use of race in creating SB 8. That was those two new districts. That map is an unconstitutional gerrymander, and its use would violate the plaintiff's constitutional rights. Now, this opinion is almost 100 pages long, so we're going through to see if it says something more broadly about the Voting Rights Act. That had been the fear on the left, that somehow this decision, if it was favorable for those challenging these maps, that it would somehow do a big chunk out of the Voting Rights Act. Haven't gotten to language that suggests that yet. It sounds like this decision is primarily about what happened in Louisiana, so we'll keep digging through this, but for right now, it's a win for those who were challenging these two minority-majority districts. Now, as we read through this and figure out the broader implications, there were 20-plus districts across the country that would have potentially lined up with this decision. They could be open to challenges that they were drawn on the basis of race, or that it was the primary factor that was used in drawing those districts. Most of those are throughout the South. So we'll look to see if there's enough sweeping language in this particular decision that may have a domino effect on some 20 other districts. Could be huge for the midterms. We'll continue to read through.
Yeah, that will be huge. So you'll see now the case could open challenges more than 20 districts. Senator Tom Cotton's next, calling out Obama. Obama supported and campaigned for every outrageous Democratic gerrymander, including in Illinois. But now he puts out a sanctimonious statement when the Supreme Court rightfully blocks racial discrimination in redistricting. What a fraud. This is what Barack said. Today's Supreme Court decision effectively guts a key pillar of the Voting Rights Act, freeing state legislatures to gerrymander legislative districts to systematically dilute and weaken the voting power of racial minorities, so long as they do it under the guise of, we'll get to that in a second. I know I have his post here. But Cotton says Obama's outrage is fake and selective, and House Democrat Hakeem Jeffries takes it even further next, branding the court illegitimate, calling it the Trump court.
Today's decision by this illegitimate Supreme Court majority strikes a blow against the Voting Rights Act and is designed to undermine the ability of communities of color all across this country to elect their candidate of choice. But we're not here to step back, we're here to fight back.
Yes.
Now, when this decision came out earlier today, it's an unacceptable decision, but not an unexpected decision. Because this isn't even really the Roberts Court. It's the Trump Court.
Yes.
And what we would expect from the Trump Court is an effort to continue their scheme to suppress the vote and rig the midterm elections and beyond.
Okay, Hakeem, whatever. So Jeffries doing what Democrats do. Adam Schiff also says the Supreme Court decision guts the last remaining tool of the Voting Rights Act used to prevent racial gerrymanders. That's exactly what it was. Republicans across the country can now redraw congressional maps to even further disenfranchise communities of color, yet another partisan and destructive decision. Here's the full Barack Obama post. So long as they do it under the guise of partisanship rather than explicit racial bias, and it serves as just one more example of how a majority of the current court seems intent on abandoning its vital role in ensuring equal participation in our democracy and protecting the rights of minority groups against majority overreach. The good news is such setbacks can be overcome. But that will only happen if citizens across the country who cherish our democratic ideals continue to mobilize and vote in record numbers, not just in the upcoming midterms or in high-profile races, but in every election at every level. So Obama framing this as a threat to minority voting. Gavin Newsom says the decision's outrageous. MAGA's scared of you. They know they lose when black, Latino, and diverse voters are heard, so they shut them up and rig the maps. We're not backing down. November is coming. So Newsom says MAGA is scared. And ALX firing back at Alex Soros. Stop treating minorities like they're disabled or something. Shouldn't they be treated like regular humans? You people think that they're so dumb they can't even figure out how to get an ID. Stop with the BS. And this is the Alex Soros post. The Supreme Court made it easier to draw minority voters out of power. That's what today's ruling does. Kagan says Section 2 is now all but a dead letter. She's right, he says. States can gerrymander by race as long as they call it partisanship, and the court handed them the playbook to do so. So this is the aha moment. The left's not angry because democracy was hurt. They're angry because their preferred method of political engineering just got checked by the Constitution. The court did not ban minority voters from voting. It did not erase anyone's rights. It said states cannot sort Americans by race unless the law truly requires it. That is a defense of equal treatment under the law, and Democrats know it threatens a strategy they leaned on for years. And that's why Obama is sermonizing, Gavin Newsom is ranting, Adam Schiff is crying foul, and Alex Soros is pushing fear. They all understand what this ruling means, that the era of open, race-driven map drawing just took a major blow, and President Trump knew exactly what kind of win this was. So the bottom line is the ruling resets the rules, strengthens the Constitution, and exposes just how dependent Democrats became on race-based map-making to protect their power. President Trump's reaction? Love it. It was perfect, because this is what leadership looks like when America finally gets a win from the bench instead of another lecture from the activist class. Now, I want to hear from you. Should every state immediately review race-based districts after this ruling? Yes or no? Drop your answer in the comments. Share this video everywhere because the corporate media will do everything they can to blur what just happened. Subscribe if you haven't already. But most importantly, look at your screen. Text raw feed, those words, to 844-840-4963. That's my secret number to make sure we can bypass the algorithm suppression and you get a direct message from me right to your phone when it matters most. Make sure you check out the Next News merch shelf below this video. The battle for fair elections is not over, but tonight, America just scored a major victory.
The system controls information. Information control is power.
They don't want you to see this.
The truth only survives together. They don't want this. Share this now.